Gamology partnered with Ubisoft to bring these Gamology-branded outfits for The Division 2. These outfits are super cool and available for you to play right now. Alright, so let's get into it. Yeah, baby, look at that thing. Looks like something you'd take out hunting.
I actually do a lot of deer hunting with a crossbow. Some people consider that blasphemous, but I'm not good enough yet with my recurve. Now that I have some property, I'm setting up an archery range. But yeah, in Wisconsin, it's perfectly legal to hunt with a crossbow. You used to not be allowed to unless you were disabled, but it's like, well, the deer doesn't care. You're still using an arrow. You know what I mean? It is a really, really humane way to hunt.
You're not going to care about anything.
You go through the lungs and the heart with a broadhead. This looks super realistic. It looks like a crossbow that I've used hunting before. They're pretty accurate. They're not very rapid fire, and they're kind of loud, actually. They're surprisingly loud for what they are. I remember the first time I was sighting in my brother-in-law's crossbow. He was lending it to me. I just set up a little target just to check the zero, and the backyard was long enough, but it's like winter out, so things like sound carries even more, and I'm just like, and you hear ching, boom. And so it's louder than what you'd think. If this is all you had to fight with, once you launch unless you have like a magazine, you can fire multiple rounds without reloading. The reloading process takes a while. Generally, there's like this a ring on the front. I'm not a crossbow expert, folks, but you put your foot in that, and then you have to grab both your hands and pull the thing up because the poundage is so much more than just on your standard bow. This gives you range and accuracy, and it's a lot easier for me, not the most experienced archer, but very, very experienced with firearms, and for the effective range, it's just as accurate with a crossbow.
I feel like in a lot of video games, the crossbow is like the stealth weapon,
Yeah, no, it's kind of like that trope with like suppressors or silencers in movies where it's like, pew, pew. Like, nah, most of them don't do that. Some of them do, for sure. If you're trying to use this for stealth, I would just use a 300 blackout, AR with a suppressor on it with subsonic rounds. You're going to have more effective range. You're going to have rapid fire, which is very important when you're fighting to be able to, shoot quickly in succession. All that stuff is readily available. So unless you're like, this is all you got, but then if this is all you got, like we're talking like Civil War style fighting with muskets, boom, okay, reload and everything. So boom, put another bolt down, set it down, pull the thing up, pick it back up, and then go. I'd rather have a bow and arrow, because at least with a bow and arrow, you can do rapid fire. You can fire quickly and reasonably accurately, a lot faster than you can fire with the crossbow.
This kind of weapon, it seems ideal for like a post-apocalyptic situation, because if anything, you can retrieve your arrows after you kill your opponent.
Well, here's an advantage. The bolts for a crossbow are generally much heavier than you're using for an arrow for a bow. So the bow looks really cool. I'm trying to say like positive things about it. I wouldn't want it in a fight. In a post-apocalyptic scenario, I think a crossbow is great for maybe like sentry dispatch, or like, where you're having a hard time getting bullets, or for maybe home defense. Where a crossbow shines is when you have multiple people with crossbows, because while one person is reloading and everything, you can have other people that are continuing to fire, and you can work that to get your fire down. Otherwise, it does take a while. Like I always kind of chuckled at Walking Dead. Wow, he just keeps shooting and shooting and shooting.
The classic exploding arrow tip, or bolt tip in this case. I always think of Rambo First Blood Part 2 whenever somebody has exploding arrow tips.
Right, yeah. There's not in current day a ton of application for this. It would work. It's going to have a vastly different flight trajectory. It's not going to have the same range. The arc is going to be much more severe as it comes down.
Because the arrowhead is kind of shaped differently. It's filled with ordnance. Maybe like weight and aerodynamics are going to be different.
The aerodynamics can be different, but you can figure that in. You can factor in like, a cool teardrop shape, or like you can factor in the aerodynamics part. The center of gravity shifts drastically, and so the flight pattern is just, you know what I mean? Because it's so much heavier in the front. So now the advantage is with a really powerful crossbow, you're going to have a lot more energy pushing that thing. So you're going to have more range with the crossbow than you would any type of bow that you can physically pull back. And, again, if this is a post-apocalyptic scenario, I'm sure you can like figure out ways to make that sort of thing. Now, is it going to be as effective as a hand grenade? No. Is it maybe an igniter for something else, or a distraction device, or a small flashbang, like a distraction disorientating device? Yeah, you could totally use it for that.
I like how they actually have the reload animations.
We got to acknowledge that like part of playing video games isn't like how realistic it is, it's how much fun it is. And I'm a realism guy, so while I do like that, playing with just rocket launchers in the old school Halo, it was so much fun. It was just ridiculously fun. And so like entertainment comes first in these sorts of things.
Yeah, look at that gas canister on the front. Giant heat vents toward the front. I love it.
So like this, it looks very realistic, but it looks like a gas powered. Most military flamethrowers are fueled with liquid. So they generally have a gas and a liquid. And then that gas goes into the chamber where the liquid stores and it propels the liquid out. There's another hose that generally goes to the front and has like a propane flame, like a little your average propane torch up front. And then as that high pressure in that chamber pushes the liquid fuel out, it then ignites. And that's what creates the flame. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. And you can legally buy flamethrowers in most states. There's a lot of practical application when it comes to like gardening, farming, homesteading. Yeah, they're really, really effective for, you know, brush burning and preventing forest fires and whatnot. It looks very realistic. It looks believable. Yeah. It looks cool. I imagine this would be like a shorter range, you know, limited fuel, but it's also lightweight. So I think this thing looks awesome. The length of flame and the type of flame that's coming out of it makes sense for how big it is. It's not some big backpack thing, so it's not like an incredibly long range, right? So it's hard to tell because some of the shots looks like it's a gas gun, and there's a couple shots that look like it's shooting liquid. So where this is going to be effective is getting these guys out of vehicles, getting them out of pillboxes. It's what you call the good old Greek fire. In the Byzantium, I'm going to say that wrong, in the Byzantine Empire, they were using flamethrowers way back then. They'd have like bladders filled with fuel and they'd ignite, and like naval ships would use them. They weren't super popular. We're talking like between 600 to 900 BC or 80. I think AD. Somebody can correct me in the comments. I'll do push-ups for you on my Instagram channel if I got that wrong. They weren't really used a lot in modern combat until World War I, and the Germans started using them. And, you know, for trench warfare, they were super effective. The United States and the British Commonwealth countries used flamethrowers quite a bit. They even mounted them on armored vehicles. They actually did that more than other militaries, and they were very effective in like the Marines getting the Japanese out that were dug in like, you know, Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima.
You see them a lot in World War II with the Americans, yeah.
Well, they were used up through the Vietnam War. After the Vietnam War, people considered them pretty cruel, inhumane, so to speak. Now, here's the thing, man. Like, you got to get a bunch of dudes that are going to, like, kill you out of a hole, and they're not coming out of that hole, and, like, they're going to do everything they can to kill you. Okay, I have a flamethrower. I'm going to use a flamethrower. Sorry, I don't want to cause pain, suffering to anybody, but you're going to kill my people. I'm going to barbecue your ass.
Yeah, you also want to go home.
No, exactly. And so they're really good at like for psychological effect as well, like getting people out. So like if they stay in, they're gonna get smoked, literally. But if they come out, then you have the choice: capture these guys or smoke them or whatever you got to do in a combat scenario. But think about the raids you and I did overseas. Almost every single raid I've ever done, there was civilians inside every house we ever hit, and often there was children there too.
Sure, yeah, in urban environment.
It's a lot different than like here's this enemy force that took over this island that didn't have a lot of people on it, and there's not going to be families in these tunnel systems. You know, I did enter some tunnels in Iraq. Dude, it was wild. We went like way underground, like these Saddam Hussein's old like Air Force bases and stuff. It was wild, man. Our nods wouldn't even work because like there was just no light. You'd had to like use IR and everything. So in 1978, that's when the U.S. kind of stopped using them. I think part of it was just public perception and whatnot, but a huge part of it is it's not as effective from a well-equipped military standpoint when you have HE rounds. Like, you know, we can lodge a 40 millimeter grenade into a window super accurately. We have thermobaric weapons too, which are just bombs it's just filled with fuel. And so when you drop it, it superheats the air, and like it has just massive amount of energy, and it kind of, you know, if you can get a thermobaric weapon into a bunker, it's going to do even more damage than just a flamethrower. So they were really effective for their time. It's just in a modern battlefield environment with a well-equipped military, there are more effective means to do the same job nowadays.
All right.
Here we go.
Favorite way to destroy an entire neighborhood, the grenade launcher.
So there's multiple models of these like 6-shot, 5-shot, 6-shot grenade launchers. And, we're seeing them right now being used in conflicts overseas. Where these things are used the best is initiating ambushes, these type of grenade launchers, because they are larger than just the single shot little bloop gun things. So you got to take that into consideration. Urban combat, launching multiple into windows, but really just initiating ambushes is a great use of this particular weapon system. I think the grenade launcher, again, it's also helped to replace the flamethrower too. It's super effective, and when we were in Izzy, they were often mounted underneath our M4s, but I think with how battle is evolving and our tactics to it, the best method what I would personally do is keep a grenade launcher attached to my assault pack that I would pull out separately from my normal main battle rifle, because just adding that, underneath your weapon system, if you're not using it constantly, it just adds to fatigue, and fighting is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting.
Yeah, every ounce counts when you're, especially with an environment like this, like a post-apocalyptic environment. You're taking long hauls. You have limited resources. You don't know if you're going to have a good chance of resupply.
What would you guesstimate was your normal combat loadout? Like, what was the weight of it on your first tour?
Oh, the weight of it? God, we got plate carriers, plates front and back. We got a helmet. We got all our radio hookups. We got, 6 mags, one in the weapon. We got the primary and the secondary. I don't know, 45, 50 pounds. You're just trucking along, What's interesting is out in the open, some of these shots he's taking, like for video game play, for sure. For reality, no, I'm going to shoot him with my rifle. That's the thing about grenades too. I think this is an advantage for both sides, is if you can just get a little bit away from them, they're not going to kill you. You might get a tiny piece of shrapnel or something, but you got to be close in if it's not in an enclosed space. If there's nothing for that pressure to reverberate off of, if you're out in the open, if you can just get away a little bit. And the reason that's nice too is most modern combat zones, there's civilians involved. That might not be a consideration in kind of this post-apocalyptic setting for the Division 2, because it seems like the pandemic has been going on for a long time. So I don't imagine there's anybody but rival factions in the area.
Well, and that's one, what's cool about a video game, it's not real, and everybody knows it. And of all the studies with violence in the real world and video game, it's just conclusive, and it even surprises me a little bit, but it's just conclusive. As long as you have other aspects of your life are healthy, this affects violence in no way, shape, or form. Not plus or minus. It's not like, I'm getting my aggression out here. It's neutral. It's like it doesn't even matter if it exists or not. So that's kind of nice. But as well, what you were saying with the story too, this is just an enemy combatant zone. I don't know, the gameplay looks great. And the range of the grenade and how far away the guys are that are getting affected or not affected makes sense in real life too. So I don't know, this is pretty sweet.
It's awesome. I mean, what I love about the Division 2 and games like this, they take place in a scenario that we all hope we will never actually be in. It's like American urban environment, noticeable landmarks, you're running through the National Mall, and you're blowing up people right next to the Lincoln Memorial or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I hear the co-op on this for online play is actually pretty amazing.
There's realism and there's entertainment, and entertainment, is the most important thing. And for me, I don't know about you, Izzy, but I'm a stickler about, details and everything. And so as long as the game is fun enough and the world is interesting enough, I can suspend my belief or just be whatever, like Borderlands, you know what I mean? Borderlands is great. Well, it's not the same as Borderlands, but I mean, it's so entertaining, but also they found that right balance of realism. If you look at his chest rig, and you can see the detail and the aging on the magazines there, and I love that he's got some crazy revolver and his nylon drop leg and everything, and you got a 6-barrel minigun. Now the purpose of a minigun, of course, is speed. You need an intensely high rate of fire, generally due to moving vehicles. That's why you often see them on aircraft, right, that are moving very, very fast. They're really good on fast boats, river boats.
I saw these mounted into Blackhawks that I was flying around in when I was in Iraq.
The other requirement is when you need very, very intense suppressive fire. So that's one of the reasons they're used a lot in river fast attack boats, patrol boats. So if you look at this, if we look at these rounds, that's a a really, really long bullet protruding out of there. I don't know what bullet this would be in real life.
Yeah, it even says 7.62 cal on the side of the drum there, so that looks a little bit bigger than 7.62.
Yeah. That's not how long the bullet is, that's the thickness of the bullet. So it's a 30 caliber bullet. Yeah, so it does look like a 30 caliber bullet to me, but there's multiple 30 caliber bullets, you know, like 7.62 NATO is different than the 7.62 that the Russians were using. You know, you got 7.62 by 5.4R. That's a big honking round. Or you got the AK round, 7.62 by 3.9, which is a short little fat boy, you know. So with this thing, if it's a minigun, it means it's going to have an incredibly high rate of fire, which means the ammunition is going to get expended quickly. So you'd want it like a backpack, you know what I mean, to haul this. Now, if this is in the future, we'll say like Elon Musk got these batteries down pat, so there's more than enough electricity to run it, where today you'd need like some big-ass heavy batteries for it. But so the battery thing's believable. That the amount of ammunition on there, that's enough for something like a Bravo 240 or a SAW, but that's going to be gone on this minigun in like less than a second.
And I like the gameplay where he's firing at people. He's, you know, they're dropping pretty quickly, but I feel like you'd be like severing limbs and taking off heads with this thing.
So as far as like him holding it and everything, like, and you can see he's kind of like fighting the centrifugal force of the barrel spinning.
Yeah, it looks like the barrel's heating up too a little bit when he fires.
Probably. That's why there's multiple barrels, though, because the so insane rate of fire would melt a barrel. I used to hang out with the F-16 pilots when I was a kid at Truex Air Base in Madison because it was nearby. They were telling me how like they could only hold down on their miniguns for like because if they did any longer than that, they'd melt them. They'd melt the barrels. Like, that's how insane, how fast they shoot.
Well, I know that in terms of guns, you know, we're looking at this guy lugging this thing around on the battlefield. You know, it's not like you walk out alone with this kind of weapon. Because, yeah, I can lay down a lot of fire at one time. It's also heavy. You know, you're lugging that thing around. I think they have smaller miniguns, I think, that have just been developed. I don't know if you saw that at SHOT Show last year.
Yeah, I saw a 5.56 minigun, which that's kind of crazy. And I think with drone warfare, that's kind of going to be the wave of the future, man. Like these phalanx systems, I think is going to be energy weapons, and then like smaller portable miniguns attached to radar that like these things are coming in, all right, with like, I don't know, frangible rounds or air detonate. I don't know, but I really do think that's the wave of the future. On a battlefield, this is kind of like a flamethrower when it comes to like the psychological aspect. Like, there's a different pucker factor when you get shot at with a RPK and you hear like pop 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 versus like, it's just a different, like, you know, your butthole has a completely different diameter of like tightness when you're getting shot at with a minigun.
Yeah, if I was actually in a real world post-apocalyptic scenario in Washington, D.C., I'd love to have this thing, but only as a part of a squad. I wouldn't want to be standing alone out in the middle of the National Mall with a minigun, because you might lay a few people down, but then, you know, maneuverability, weight, that kind of stuff. Definitely I would like to have something a little more mobile.
The issue with the minigun is you can't really shoulder fire it, right? We're just not there yet. I don't know if we'll ever be, because like, why would you need to shoulder fire something that has just that's such an insane rate of fire? So I've seen in movies, and this seems to make sense, that they'll have like a laser, a big ass laser on it. Green lasers are visible during the day, depending upon how powerful they are. Something that we're switching to in the military for night vision, since, you know, we just gave Afghanistan, and by then indirectly the Chinese, tons of night vision technology. More and more people have night vision, and we normally aim with an infrared laser. Well, now, if you also have night vision, you can see everybody aiming with the infrared laser. So we're doing like this kind of weird POV heads up thing where you have like a screen and a camera now on your weapon system. So that's like another way that you'd be able to do that if you had like kind of a heads up display or smart glasses or something. And as you move it around, kind of like a helicopter, you know, where you can see the heads-up display, you'd be able to aim pretty effectively with that, and it would be displayed on your, you know, your smart glasses or whatever. So there's three methods: a laser system, a cool camera system with a heads-up display, or you're just walking it in. Yeah. You're just walking it in, baby.
Yeah, Neo style from the first Matrix, kind of walking it around, you know. All right, the rocket launcher, everybody's favorite big boom weapon. The multiple tubes, that looks definitely something like, can I just say, 1980s action movie Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He grabs one of these bad boys out of a surplus store, which I think is awesome. Look at that, looks a little more advanced.
Yeah, so this is what's awesome about this.
This almost looks like a, almost like a mini Stinger, because the Stinger, it shoots it out and then it activates and guides itself.
I could see this totally happening in the future. H&K was working on something similar to this with they were 20 millimeter HE rounds that were smart. They wouldn't like change direction, but they would like, you could choose where they would detonate. And I think like this is the natural evolution of this. Boom, boom, boom. And then you can go up over barriers. You could air burst right next to them. This thing is so cool. And like, you know, I mentioned that heads up display before.
Sci-fi version of this would be from XCOM 2 or the XCOM video game series. You have something called the blaster launcher, which it was a directional rocket launcher, and you could actually program where the rocket would go. Not relevant to this game, but if you want to check it out, you can. I love the reloading system. You take out the canister from the middle, and then you put it back in, which has the rockets in it. It's really well thought out.
Yeah, and like the 6 tubes and everything, like you can tell they talked to some weapons experts when they were designing all this. Yeah, the way he's using it. Oh, look at this. This is like scary as hell. But the way he's using it, this is perfect, man. Okay, I have all these people behind these barriers. I've got 6 separate rockets. Look at that. In the animation. Like, oh, that last guy. This might be my favorite weapon we've seen so far.
This is fun. This is probably the funnest weapon of the game.
So there's a difference between rockets, missiles, and grenades. And a grenade, it's just like a bullet. It's like a big cartridge. There's an explosion in the tube, and then it gets launched. And that's how a grenade gets launched. A rocket, on the other hand, is not like a bullet. It literally it's constantly sending out that fuel until it runs out. So there's a chemical reaction within the rocket itself that's propelling it. And so this is totally based off of real technology.
Yeah, I love that we're using highly expensive, highly advanced mini rockets to shoot at individuals. But I would think that this would be more for like maybe structures or vehicles.
I don't want to disagree with you because I love you so much and you're just so darn good looking and cute. But I think because the rockets are small, I think those are people rockets. And because there's multiple, I think this weapon system is designed to take out like a squad of dudes.
It does seem to have a pretty easy time locking onto people.
I would have no problem whatsoever shooting someone with a rocket. Not one bit. I used to want to carry the law system.
Oh, I'm not saying I'd have any moral objections to doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the purpose is for it in the game. Look at that. All the bells and whistles on this thing. I love it.
It
bolt action.
Looks super real.
Nice scope.
Yep, that optic looks good. You got the nice level on it. You know, the skeletonized bolt to reduce weight. You know, you got some Picatinny rails up front to add whatever little options you want. So for these close-in shots, you know, we're shooting out to like maybe 100 yards right there. I just use a normal rifle. I just use a normal carbine. I mean, you could even use a pistol caliber carbine.
Right, he's using this for like almost CQB distances, you know, really close. But, you know, that doesn't seem as efficient as maybe like an AR-style rifle or some sort of other assault rifle.
But like this looks like a super competent sniper rifle, and you see that quick like working of the bolt there, and it chucked the round out. Boom, headshot. Izzy, have you ever played a game where you'd had to adjust for bullet drop depending upon how far you were shooting?
I don't know. I would guess that would be something like the Sniper Elite series, but you guys can tell us in the comments. Do you have to adjust for windage and drop? Well, actually, no, drop, yes. Like even Apex Legends, you have to adjust for drop when you have a sniper weapon, but I would say something like the Sniper Elite series probably has those adjustments in more detail because that's the whole point of the game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I don't ever recall, and I'm not the biggest video game guy, but I don't recall ever having to like, no, it's just bullseye. Just put the bullseye no matter how far away you're going.
Well, yeah, sure. Even Call of Duty Modern Warfare and then the latest Modern Warfare 2, there's a couple sniper missions where you have to adjust for drop. But it's real simple.
And it doesn't, you know, like I said, entertainment is the number one priority, but, you know, add another skill set. Now, this rifle looks awesome. And, looking at that scope, I love how, like, I feel like modern weapons, specifically the AR-15, but it expands to everything, is like the modern day hot rod, where, like, instead of building a hot rod in your garage, you're just building rifles. And instead of, like, candy apple red, you have flat dark earth, coyote tan. And like, you know, some people call it like, you know, peanut butter, the peanut butter color, or like the baby poop. That's another thing they call it, the baby poop color.
I think I'll prefer to call it peanut butter.
I just like how they got like the aluminum anodization, you know, how it's kind of shiny, and then they have like the matte color and just the multiple shades of tan, and it's kind of, I don't know, I get off on that sort of stuff.
And if you want some more amazing footage like this, head on over to Gamology's Facebook and YouTube page. If you want to hang out with me a little bit more, head on over to twitch.tv/myhappyself.
If you want to follow along with my adventures, check me out at Mav11B and Thunderpunk Radio on Instagram.